Welcome to R&R Living Life. In this episode, Rick and I continue exploring the Wangaratta area by visiting Glenrowan, the Winton Wetlands, Benalla and Winton Raceway before moving on to Myrtleford. The day started with a very chilly 0.3 degrees, but was feeling like minus 1.7, so a later start was required. First up this morning we made our way to Glenrowan, one of the many places I was interested in seeing, but I was to be disappointed. What I had thought would be a more rustic rural town turned into a very touristy-driven town. Glenrowan, near the Warby Ranges in Mount Glenrowan, was named after farmers James and George Rowan, who ran farms in the area between 1846 and 1858. The township was settled in the late 1860s, with the post office opening in 1870. The township of Glenrowan is most famous for the bushranger Ned Kelly, who made his last stand and was eventually captured here in 1880 after a siege and shootout with police. Their story is well preserved in the township's very modern attractions, museums and historic walks. With a 6-metre-high Ned Kelly statue guarding the village, we made our way to the rotunda and viewing platform at the Ned Kelly Discovery Hub. That gave us a unique perspective of the locations that played a pivotal part in Ned Kelly's final stand. Across the railway line we visited the significant sites of the police shelter, Ned Kelly's capture site, the block where Anne Jones Glenrowan Inn was, before crossing the road to check out the Anglican Church. The local railway station opened in 1874 and closed to passengers in 1981. The town also gives its name to the Glenrowan wine region, which was formally defined in 2003, with the first grapevines planted in 1866. Ned Kelly's descendants finally got their chance to bury the outlaw's remains in the cemetery at Greta, which we visit in a later episode. Kelly's brother Dan and fellow Kelly gang member Steve Hart are also buried in the cemetery. From Glenrowan we made our way to the Winton Wetland Reserve on the corner of Winton North and Boggy Bridge Roads, a vast portion of land in northeast Victoria that houses a large variety of flora and fauna, including many species of birds and animals. We stopped at Duck Ponds, a waterhole surrounded by reed beds, grasslands and tall timber stags. It is one part of the wetlands that can be expected to have permanent water due to its location along the remains of the old artificially created dam wall. We were treated to pelicans and black swans gliding across the surface of the water, magnificent yellow-billed spoonbills wading through the shallows, ducks and raptors soaring overhead. We moved on from Duck Pond to the entrance of Greens Hill along Boggy Bridge Road. In 1971 the area was inundated for irrigation, despite protests from the families that were displaced by the newly created Lake Moken, formed by the diversion of water from the Broken River and Hollands Creek into Winton and Green Swamps. Construction began in the late 1960s of a 7.5 kilometre long dam wall, the longest dam wall in the southern hemisphere at the time. Martin's Barge tells one of the many stories of agricultural history within the reserve. It was used to transport young cattle over the water to Green's Island to graze. The cattle were fattened and prepared for market before being journeyed back to Boggy Bridge Road, where they were unloaded. The Martin family from Bungett built the barge in the mid-1980s, and it now rests at the high water mark. In the middle of the wetlands was fish trees, representing the yellow belly and Murray cod that live in Lake Moken. The blue and green rings are 5 metres up the trees to mark the maximum depth of Lake Moken. 16 farming families had their land compulsory acquired, with many others losing significant portions of their land to make way for the lake. Boggy Bridge was of rough timber construction and for many years critical to the functioning of the district, given the swampy nature of the landscape. The remains of the timber piers were burnt through in the 2010 bushfire, but we could see where they had once been as we crossed the very boggy, swampy area. Initially, Lake Moken was a great success, providing a reliable water supply and a fantastic recreational resource. Hundreds of thousands of trees within the swamp soon died across the lake and surrounding plains, killed by the flooding of the former swampland. The large, shallow lake had a very high surface area to volume ratio, resulting in extreme water loss through evaporation, and there were frequent toxic algal blooms requiring regular closures for recreational activities and causing livestock to become ill. The Victorian government decided to decommission the channels and lake to restore the landscape to a more natural wetland and woodland ecosystem, with restoration efforts expected to take at least 100 years, beginning one of the world's most significant environmental, social and economic renewal projects, the largest wetland restoration project in the Southern Hemisphere. Planning for the decommissioning began in 2004 and work started in 2009. Environmental restoration was progressing, averaging 200 hectares per year, and plant regenerating and wildlife populations were increasing on the site. Recently, though, the project has been defunded by the Victorian government and now faces an uncertain future without a designated land manager. The future of the site, including the long-term ecological restoration and ecotourism opportunities, is currently unclear. As we drove across the lake to Green Hill, a woodland hill within part of the restored wetlands, providing habitat for wildlife, I gazed at all the dead red river gum trees, over 150,000 of them, across what was swampland, and shook my head at such a loss of natural habitat and ecosystem. Though the scenery was dramatic and striking, I contemplated the long-term effects that the lake had had on the area. Greens Hill also gave us an opportunity to explore the historic phases of the early Aboriginal occupancy, early European infrastructure remnants, and signs of current ecological restoration. From Green Hill we made our way back along Boggy Bridge Road to Lake Moken Road and then onto the viewing platform near the Moken Hub and Cafe, now closed. I gazed out across part of the nearly 9,000 hectares of lake, covered by tall reddish-brown reeds that made for a stunning foreground to the mountains in the distance. From Lake Moken we made our way to Benalla, a small city in the Hume region of Victoria. Benalla is situated on the Broken River, which rises to the southeast beyond Tolmi and flows northwest to join the Goulburn River near Shepparton. During its journey, the river passes through a floodplain, resulting in multiple watercourses and swampy depressions. Street art is the cat's cry in Benalla, with huge murals lining buildings across the town. When pastoral overlanders followed reports by explorers Hume, Hovell and Mitchell of the Port Phillip grazing lands, they had to cross the Broken River. Alexander Molson found a narrow stream bed and built a temporary bridge in 1837 to transport stock and equipment across. Mollison's route became an accepted means to access the area and was marked out with some care for the purposes of an overland mail service in 1838 between Melbourne and Sydney, and for policing of the district. The Black Swan Hotel opened in 1840 and included a Cobb & Co coach office, and in 1844 a post office. A timber bridge was built over the river in 1847. The following year a hamlet was surveyed and named after the Benalla pastoral run. The surrounding area was suitable for wheat growing, orchards and vines, as well as grazing. We stopped and checked out the historic botanical gardens, originally designed by Alfred Sangwell in 1886, with a collection of native and exotic species and a stunning iconic rose garden established in 1959, a short distance from Lake Benalla. The lake was formed by a weir in 1975 that crosses the Broken River. The Botanic Gardens spans 8 hectares of lush landscaped beauty. The gardens were a perfect place for Rick and I to wander among grand old trees, vibrant flower beds and wide open lawns, not to mention for me to take numerous photographs of a wide variety of roses in bloom, all in various shades of red. Near the entrance to the Botanical Gardens was the Benalla War Memorial, originally erected in 1922 to commemorate World War I, with the names of those who died in service or were killed in action. Names from subsequent conflicts, including World War II and the Vietnam War, were added at a later date. On our way back to Wangaratta, we passed solar farms on both sides of the highway. The Winton North Solar Farm, one of the solar farms in the area, provides energy to over 52,000 homes, with expansions in the pipeline. We stopped in at Winton to check out the Winton Motor Raceway, an iconic motorsport complex established in 1961. Unfortunately, it was all closed up, and all we got to see were the signs through the gate. A little disappointing. The raceway, with a combination of long, fast straights and twisty and tight bends, could have been exciting to drive. We had taken a drive around Mount Panorama, but then again, Winton Raceway is in an isolated area, not just part of the road system like Mount Panorama, where you have to follow the road speed limits. It was then back to Wangaratta, where the first Europeans to pass through the area were Human Hovell in 1824, naming the Oxley Plains immediately south of Wangaratta, and Major Thomas Mitchell during his 1939 expedition. Thomas Rattray, the first squatter, arrived in 1838 and built a hut on the site of the Wangaratta RSL, founding a settlement known as Ovens Crossing. Wangaratta became a major service centre when gold was discovered in nearby Beechworth in 1852, with a bridge over the Ovens River completed in early 1855. Our time in Wangaratta was up, so made a short move to Myrtleford, first making our way out to the North Wangaratta Sports Reserve, where we went for a walk around the oval, before making our way along the Great Alpine Road. We passed through Tarrawinji, a rural village on the Ovens Highway or the Great Alpine Road, named after the Tarrawinji pastoral run, taken up by William Bowman in 1837. In 1889, prospectors discovered a hill of pure limestone near Tarrawinji. A township was established to service the quarry. In addition to the quarries, several wood carters lived in Tarrawinji, cutting and carting wood for use in the Broken Hill. For a while, a teacher provided part-time lessons for the woodcutters' children. There are no standing buildings in Tarrawinji today, just stone foundations of a few, including the Tarrawinji Railway Station building. Further along the highway was Everton, another small rural town in flat to undulating country. Everton was situated at a position where it was relatively safe to cross the flood-prone Ovens River plain, making it convenient for miners moving between Wangaratta and the goldfields at Bright and the Buckland Valley. In addition to pastoral occupations, Everton had sawmills and a molybdenum mine during World War II. Molybdenum is a highly useful industrial metal known for its strength and high melting point, a crucial alloying agent in steel and cast iron. We then passed through Bowman's Forest, covering an area of 56,088 square kilometres. The Bowman's Forest Fire Brigade was formed in 1906. It is one of the oldest continuous existing fire brigades in Victoria. Dairying was the first major industry in the area, with a creamery opened in 1897 to 1919. It was interesting to find out that Victoria is the only British colony settled illegally, with squatters not authorised by the government to occupy land in the Port Phillip district at the time, with at least 4 early selectors being ex-convicts. We continued on through Gapstead, a locality at the foothills of the Stanley Range, a small picturesque farming community, once a historic rest stop for gold diggers heading to the goldfields of the Buckland Valley and Morses Creek. Nut groves and berry farms adorn the hills, and in the paddocks prime beef cattle and dairy cows grazed on green pastures. Today it is also a prominent area for cold climate wines. We continued on to Myrtleford, stopping at the Clearwater Reserve on the outskirts of town to stretch our legs and have a walk along the Ovens River. While it historically hosted swimming carnivals, it now serves as a convenient rest stop with limited information boards, but was a nice place to spend some time and have our morning coffee. From there we made our way into town. Myrtleford, in the Ovens Valley at the base of Mount Buffalo near the Ovens and Buffalo rivers, is known for its agricultural history and picturesque alpine landscapes. Originally a centre for pastoralists and timber, the town evolved into a major tobacco growing area following the arrival of Italian migrants in the 1920s. The rich soil of the region is known for its fresh local produce, including vegetables, berries, nuts and olives, and famous vineyards spread across the Alpine Valley. After setting up Gidget, Rick and I spent some time walking around town, enjoying some of its interesting features, including the mosaic murals, the big tree that is said to exceed 200 years of age, and just checking out the town. I just wanted to play in the piles of leaves, but was told to act my age. Before we made our way back to Gidget, Rick and I will leave you here in Myrtleford for this episode. Join us next time as we revisit Bright, make our way to Germantown and the stunning Kiewa Valley near Mount Beauty. Give us a thumbs up if you have enjoyed this episode. Stay safe and enjoy life. Cheers for now. Rick and Rosemary. R&R, Living Life.